morning I'm reading the second and third memory that arose as I walked Rathdowne Street in 2008 as part of a project, a performance project. As these memories would arise, I would write them down, and this is what I'm reading to you now. Rathdowne Street is the fourth north-south street, the fourth of 7. Its colour is green. This is Rathdowne Street Primary School. Strictly speaking, this is not an early memory of Rathdowne Street School because I didn't actually see the school itself until 1979. Rather, it's a memory of an imagined Rathdowne Street School. It happened this way. I was in the marching team of Brighton Primary as one of the 3 back marchers. We won our regional sports one warm day down by the bay with the fragrance of salt in the air. The all-metropolitan titles were to take place at Carlton Football Club's Princes Park later in that spring of 1958. I would rather have been running or jumping or doing anything other than marching, but I was trying hard to fit in. And Mr. Neville, the marching teacher, must have thought I was a good backmarker. Or else he had me in because he'd taken a shine to my mother. He always found something to say to her on the occasions she came to pick my sister and I up from school. Anyway, our marching team came second. The winners were the boys from Rathdowne Street Primary, and they wore navy blue peak caps and navy blue ties, just like I imagined Air Force pilots did. They looked so smart and confident compared to us in our whited out runners and motley assortment of shorts. In the following months and years, I kept imagining what it must have been like to go to a school called Rathdowne Street Primary. Many trees spread amongst vast lawns, a neatly cared for landing strip close to the schoolhouse, and some barracks along the side. Behind it, a large marching yard with a wooden perimeter fence painted white for the boys to practice their routines, whilst aeroplanes hummed low just beyond the barracks. In the spring of 1979, a friend who'd been delayed at work asked me to pick up her child from school. Following directions, I walked up to a small 2-storey brick building just around the corner from Grattan Street. A steel mesh fence separated the building from the busy street. I looked up to see Rathdowne Street Primary carved in capitals into a blue stone lintel above the entrance. Just inside the yard, a group of children holding shovels and other implements were standing around a little mound of brown earth. A teacher knelt by a tree lying on its side. As I got closer, I could see that they dug a deep hole through the asphalt and were now about to lower the small tree into it, its roots protruding milky green from a matted ball of dry soil at its base. There was no landing strip anywhere. Corner Rathdowne and Richardson. This memory predates the building of the median strip running along the centre of Rathdowne Street, complete with its verdant company of plane trees. At the height of summer, the street used to become a wide funnel of hot, dusty wind journeying hurriedly southwards from Park Street. Throughout the hot season, north winds would force their way under the doors of the faded Victorian terraces along the street's eastern and western perimeter. In winter, sheets of rain poured across from Royal Park and slammed into the houses facing west, and in the early evening gloom, car headlights and brake lights played all along the watery surface of the road. Both Rathdowne and Richardson are wide streets. Their intersection, before the plane trees reduced its scale, was unusually vast. North Carlton Post Office stands on the northwestern corner. It's probably of Edwardian design, all tiles, red bricks and creamy stucco details. Located on the pavement outside it, nesting under a large plane tree, stands a steel and glass public telephone box. 20 years ago it replaced the original wooden cabin. This was painted red, topped by a black peaked roof covered in asphalt. It was glazed on all sides with small rectangular glass panels. The telephone itself was a heavy black implement and constantly smelled of sweat, of mould, of old and ancient things. I made a number of calls from that telephone box, and one of them was very important. It was summer. I stood inside it, awash with sweat, as the branches of a nearby plane tree, laden with foliage and driven by hot northerly winds, incessantly scratched its roof. In the middle of a sentence that was to probably change my life forever, I remember suddenly understanding why public telephones receivers always smelled so heavily of sweat. I watched the translucent drops trickle from my palms onto the bakelite, felt them slowly roll down my temples onto the earpiece. I then remember looking out through the glazed panels onto the roadway and seeing my father drive by. Though he flashed by, I seem to remember the details inside the car as neatly as if he'd stopped for a minute and let me memorize them. A strange woman sat in the passenger seat. It was early afternoon and he should have been at work. Then again, it may not have been him. I've never asked him, of course, but the image remains crystal clear. I can see it now, the confident smile beaming towards his passenger, the familiar shape of his head nodding in answer to an unimaginable question. As it happens, I often stop at this post office these days because it's a convenient way to pay my bills, but I never consider parking right in front. I always park around the corner in Richardson Street, even though this means I have to walk across the road to get to it. A week or two ago, I had to stop here again and I parked in the usual spot. But this time I sat in the car for a minute or two, wondering why I keep avoiding the easier alternative. I then stepped out and walked resolutely across the street up to that phone box. I entered and leaned my back against its glass wall so that I could face the traffic streaming by along Rathdowne Street. I then put my hand on the receiver and closed my eyes. Such mysterious lives we lead. Until tomorrow, when I'll read you the fourth and fifth memory of what arose in me as I walked along Rathdowne Street. It's a warm day here in Mildura, but I'm not sweating yet. Until tomorrow's stories.